Hey guys, Claire Metz again, back for interview vlog number 2 with the retiree. So today I interviewed Mrs. Wilson. She was a really interesting person for me to interview because she wasn't a part of management. She just worked at the company and followed the processes she was given. She provided an inside view of what an employee's outlook on communication is like, especially the number of years ago at the time she left the workforce. So, what is your name? Where did you work, and how long did you work there?
Sherry Wilson, and I started working out at Single Source Technologies. It was down on 16 Mile in Sterling Heights, and it was in competition with a company called Makino, and finally Makino asked us to join them, so it's Makino and SST are together, and then we moved out to Auburn Hills so we could be near all the people coming from foreign countries.
Okay.
We had a lot of foreign communication.
Yeah. Oh, that's good for the interview. So, I want to start by asking you kind of what communication means to you in a professional sense.
Wow. Yeah, everything, because things didn't get done or didn't get done right if they weren't communicated right. A lot of it was done on writing. You had to have your email notes, and that way we could attach them and always back them up to the orders.
Okay, so at this company you were processing paperwork and orders, and so basically from the order point to the receiving point within the company, you dealt with all that paperwork, correct?
Yes, and collecting the money.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so when any communications you did with the different people within the company and your coworkers and the different departments, you had to have email paper trails, correct?
Right.
Okay, so all your communication is done through email with all the paper trails, and so
most of it, yes.
most
I would go to the service department, maybe ask them, what is on your schedule? This was supposed to be installed today, and I don't see anything.
Yeah.
And so, but most everything was, an email.
So did your supervisors directly contact you through email, or was it more just self-led? You would get the requests from the other departments and you would go through and process everything?
I don't think it came from my supervisors. I knew what was on the schedule that we were looking for and adding more to it. A lot of reports that you watched and you updated, and so you kept an eye on everything in every little machine as it was moving.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think your group had strong communication or poor communication, or somewhere in between?
I think it had to be very good communication. I think the hardest part probably was communicating with the Japanese that were there, but yeah, I think everybody communicated well. They had to get everything done on time and where it was going.
Yeah. So did you notice that there was a cultural block at all, speaking and working with these Japanese folks?
A little bit. A little bit. I had trouble understanding them a little bit. You really had to listen. Of course, they always had their head down.
Yeah.
And you never smiled at first. But by the time I left, at 10 years, they got to know you. And
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So once they warmed up to you, they would, or just because they learned the American culture better?
That's right.
Okay, after they learned the culture.
Because they're living there too,
Yeah.
So in the area, and they had to.
Yeah, learn it. So you're learning their culture as much as they're learning yours.
Yes.
That's very interesting. So just to combat that, did you just ask them to repeat themselves, or kind of just make sure you were focusing more on what they were saying to understand them?
Yes, focus myself on what they were saying and maybe repeat what I thought they said to make sure I got it.
Oh, that's a good way to combat it too.
And,
definitely.
Maybe refer back to a report or something that needed to be done.
Something that's in writing. Okay, that makes sense. That's a good option too. So, if there was one thing now that you could go back and tell yourself then, what do you think that would be?
Is to probably approach the Japanese people myself in the beginning. Even with their culture, they're maybe not supposed to speak to a woman and they don't look at you.
Yeah.
I think I probably would have done it.
Been maybe a little bit more open with them too.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense. That's a good thing.
Sure, it's going against their culture, but you'd still, you'd benefit from it in the end.
Yeah.
Because they'd come to you for something,
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of be a two-way street.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, each department depends on the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had, did you have any issues with not having all the information you needed to process paperwork, or
Well, once in a while, yes.
yeah, you'd have to go, would you have to go hunt it down and?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because I had a list of things I needed, and when I didn't get it, I don't have this.
Yeah, and then nothing could get done with it being.
Like even the salesman might not turn in everything that's needed when it was ordered, and you can't order it until you have this.
Yeah, yeah. And so what do you think the biggest thing that you learned within that company, and having to be so good at communication and doing all this paperwork and making sure that things are communicated clearly between all the departments and yourself? What do you think that biggest takeaway you got from working there is?
To my benefit, I was a very detailed person, so that helped.
Yeah.
But I think just listening probably when somebody said something. Catch, your ears open all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
In case you miss something.
Absolutely, and avoid.
Something might get changed. We've changed this to this, and you got to know that.
They might not specify that, so you have to catch that. That's a good
if
point
it doesn't
too.
Get to me, yep.
Good. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you. So thank you very much. So looking back on this, I found it really interesting that, like my father, Mrs. Wilson saw the importance of communications and actually used the same wording that he did, saying that communication is everything. I found it very interesting that she saw its importance then and now sees the importance of being open-minded interculturally. After the interview recording, she actually told me about a coworker who got fired for negatively interacting with the Japanese employees and not being open-minded to the cultural differences and unknowns, which is against the company's policy. I enjoyed this interview and being able to compare her opinion to my father's, who is higher up in management.